Hello, amazing, beautiful souls. Welcome. I hope you're doing well. Today, I want to share with you some observations, some thoughts that I've been having on the news. And I'm talking about the real news because I feel like the news on TV is very far away, removed, stretched from the much bigger news of what is actually happening in the ethers, in the cosmic layers of the self. And so when I talk about the self, I talk about, the individual self, let's just say with small s, but I'm talking about that self from the perspective of the collective higher self, capital S, right? So maybe a different way to say it is, yes, it is the soul, but from the oversoul's perspective. I'm not just talking perspective. I'm talking about an actual embodiment. We went through probably years of serious transmutations, right? And transmutations, we're talking alchemical processes of constant deaths and rebirths and letting go. A lot of destruction. Whatever, maybe it's necessary, maybe it's not. We went through it. That's that. But this last period, I felt it was way more integrative than destructive. And the transitions were softer, and softer. And these integrations led us to this point that I'm perceiving, this is the news, that we're now operating from the subconscious collective mind. You know how they say that we have, at best, about 3% capacity to operate from from consciousness, and 97% of the time we're operating strictly from that subconscious. And they're different things what I'm talking about, but they're related through the brain, right? Because so the 97% typically refers to the egoic personality patterns, the tape, the way you have been raised, the trauma that has been happening to you, the repetitive behaviors that you have been subjected to that created your egoic persona, right? It created your defenses, your responses to outside stimuli. But these years of deconstruction of those patterns led us to accessing through the brain, because we do need that mechanism. So we have areas of the brain that are operating within subconscious, but we're accessing our subconscious and the subconscious. And I had a series of events that made me question that. And I still doubted it, but today I had confirmation and I'm like, great. And I haven't had the need and I haven't had confirmations in a while, because it's like, this is what's going on. But with this one is huge, right? Because it means we're operating from theta, right? As a brain state. And theta, not too long ago, took some serious structure, at least for me, right? It took breath work, it took meditation techniques, it took binaural brain waves, like sound, it took all kinds of things. And even if you reach it, it takes strength, power, whatever, to maintain that state, right? So theta is the subconscious area of the mind, where you are so relaxed that you feel like you're sleeping, but you're very much aware, right? You're not sleeping at all. You're hyper alert. And then delta, that's even deeper into the subconscious. But what the first event that happened was the bombing of Iran. And I'm reading the news and I'm observing myself reacting to that news. There was nothing happening, which was very interesting, right? Yes, there's some worry, what's next? But in terms of physical feelings, emotions that were triggered, not necessarily emotions, just was there a trigger? No, there was absolutely nothing. Just a wonder, how are they going to respond? What's going up next, right? Like I could observe the fear of the world, the chaos that that event uh, triggered. But within me, it was a blandness. Like, it was so odd. It was so different. And I started to go deeper, right? Because it's like, what's this? What's going on? And so I'm also fortunate because during that time, I spent a week in Hawaii. And I was so immersed into the rainforest with the roots. I mean, when you walk through that display of life and nature, it is so I don't even know, it's everything. And then the rest half of the day you're spending in the ocean, which again, it's whoa. And so that to me was what's happening. It's this life because you're seeing all these roots that are individual roots, but they are so interconnected. There is no plant that was living in its own space. Everything was touching and sharing and communicating and being yeah, interconnected. I don't know what else to say, right? And then the ocean with with its rivers, with its streams, it's like you feel the different areas of the ocean, yet it's one thing. And that made me reflect on how this self is built in a very similar way. And I realized that the news, because now I have access to the subconscious, it didn't register, right? It didn't register the same way. And I'll give another example of this. You know, in physics, when you have a great force that's acting on a little surface, it imposes a great stress to that surface, right? But when you take that same great force and you impose it over a much bigger surface, that stress is then distributed and it becomes less. And it's very similar to this. It's not that the stress was not there, but when you take that event and you have the perspective of all life, not all, I don't have capacity to understand all life. So whatever much greater capacity that I have to feel this interconnectedness of how life moves, that I'm going to call it isolated event didn't have that same impact. Not only that, but you could also see how other areas of life sort of have, I'm going to call it a duty, a responsibility to maintain high vibration, to maintain a high vitality of life, to maintain celebration, to provide circulation, to provide life force. Because if all life would feel the same pressure, it would be a terrible system, right? But because it is so interconnected and so shared, the way it is perceived, it is doable, right? So it's kind of the same thing. I was like, oh my God, cutting down a tree, that tree feels that pain, or what? No, the entire forest, the entire earth feels that pain, but that tree doesn't have to feel, it doesn't feel the pain in the same way. So it's almost like to life, it is nothing. And also that life gets recycled into something else, and it's not actually lost, right? So death, this idea of this constant death and rebirth, kind of became obsoleted, right? It kind of made me think, okay, in this place of the oversoul, is duality necessary? Is the mechanism of creation different than the way we know it here on earth, right? The feminine and the masculine, the negative polarity with the positive, creating life, destroying life, to create new life, to destroy more life. But from this other perspective, and oh my God, just hear myself. I mean, this is a huge realization, but now that I'm putting it into words, it's like, God, I'm bringing nothing to the table once again. Like, this is, what the heck is new? Well, what's new is the embodiment of this on a collective level. And who cares if it's not new? It's new. And same with language, right? Language, I felt language has been such a problem. And as soon as you speak it, right, like you start to define it and you don't have quite the right words. And also from this new perspective, what language has become, or the problem of the language has become obsolete, because the subconscious doesn't talk in language, right? That's the analytical mind. And so language is just a symbolic words. They don't even have to become coherent, right? And it's very interesting because I'm listening to the feedback that I get on my newsletter, right? I have this weekly newsletter that I put out, and it is so divided. It is amazing. I have people who are like, oh my God, your newsletter speaks so clearly to what's been happening to me. And then I have this other spectrum that it's like, it's just words. I mean, I understand what the words mean individually, but you put them together and it's just like kind of gibberish. I mean, they don't say it quite like that, but I mean, that's basically the idea. It doesn't make any sense, right? And that's because I'm talking subconscious. It's not regular language. They're just words instead of pictures. They're symbols of a frequency, a state of being. And we still have these means of communication, like email, like the written language, right? And to me, another example of that that also came yesterday, right after I wrote my newsletter. I'm reading this Arcturian channeling, and I'm biased because I feel like my frequency. I don't care to go into the cosmic family, but I've noticed that this Arcturian frequency feels very home, and my healing and everything else is very Arcturian, right? But what was different with this Arcturian channeling just the other day was it was exactly the frequency that I stepped into when I wrote my letter. And to me, it's like, it's the same exact message like never before. This has been going on for a while, that we're on the same page with so many channels, with so many people who understand energy, but from a different perspective. If you're not in subconscious and you're reading both of our outputs, they could feel like totally different messages. Does that make sense? And what I'm thinking, where we're going now, is that this problem of language cannot be a problem. Because if we perceive it as a problem, it's going to be quite the problem. So I guess what I'm saying is that we have to understand that they're two separate languages. So you either speak subconscious or you don't. And you can't quite reconcile, you can't quite clarify anymore. You can't quite be precise anymore in the words you choose, in the articulation, because you're speaking from a totally different space of symbolism as the language. And so I'm coming into this acceptance that I am not going to reach many, many people through language. But this place, where I'm at, it doesn't take these problems uh, and worries about it. You know what I mean? So it's just observations of how this unfolding is happening, and how we apply this space of the subconscious within movement, within communion, within community, within whatever else. It's I mean, I've been saying this is going to be interesting, but it's now like, holy cow, this is going to be interesting. It's more and more spicier and different. So I don't know. I feel like I blobbered, but again, I'm giving up on being coherent. Not that I really was articulate before, but now I really dance with the energy, and that's what it is. That's kind of how it is in my meditations, and I'm so grateful for everybody who comment and is there because we can just play and be okay with knowing things without really knowing things, right? Yeah. And so the space requires our presence more and more. And it's that presence, and it's almost like it doesn't, I'm misspeaking when I say it's like, if you're in this space, your presence is here. How aware you are of that presence is becoming actually less important, because it's just a matter of your skill, right? Like, how skilled are you? How much access of your subconscious brain have you reached to be aware of your subconscious state? That is less important than your frequency. Has your frequency made it, let's just say, I kind of hate to say it like that, into this threshold of swimming in the subconscious place? So being aware of that presence just makes the journey more luxurious. But these breakthroughs that we used to have, right? These perceptional breakthroughs, these pops, um, I feel like they're kind of gone. They were part of the other unfoldment. And this unfoldment is more quiet, more gentle, more subtle. It's like, I know who I am. I know what I'm doing here. And I don't need the applause, or I don't need the validation. This self leadership has been activated um, in a very profound way. I don't know what more to say about it. So even though you are governing the lower S self, because you're operating from the oversoul self, nothing else matters. And you are governed within self leadership. It's very freeing in a quiet way, if you will, right? I don't have that burst of, oh my God, I feel the freedom. It's like, oh, wow, look at me. I'm free of this. I'm free of that. What's this? It's different. So anyway, happy playing. If you want to play with me, with us, you're welcome to check out my community, my meditations, my blogs, and I'll see you around. Thank you.